From lost children found in the forest to people who were abandoned with the dogs, here are 10 amazing stories of people raised by animals. Girl raised by wild dogs. When children are raised with very little human contact, one can't help but wonder if it is intentional or an accident. In the case of Oxana Malaya, a young girl from Ukraine being born to alcoholic parents seems to be the reason for the turn of events that impacted her life. Locked out of the house when she was 3 years old, Oxana looked for the nearest source of warmth and comfort and found a dog kennel where she stayed, surviving on scraps. Not noticing her absence, her parents went on oblivious to the fact that their daughter lived as part of the pack. There were times she seemed to have gone back into her parents' house, but for the better part of 5 years, she lived as part of the dog pack, taking on some of their mannerisms. Eating raw meat, walking on all fours, and barking are all habits she picked up from her newfound family. When a concerned neighbor alerted the police and they came to investigate, Oxana charged at them on all fours, barking. The dogs, who were chained up at the time, pulled and barked, trying to protect her. The officers needed to toss pieces of meat to lure the dogs away long enough to rescue the girl. In those 5 years, the young girl had forgotten how to walk upright and had lost the capacity to talk. Authorities placed the girl in an orphanage where she was taught not only how to walk properly again, but to talk and use her hands to eat. But that doesn't mean the experience didn't leave lasting effects on the girl. Although she can speak, her speech is flattened without tone or rhythm. Her mental function never progressed past that of a 6-year-old. Now, living on a farm caring for animals, Oxana still displays some dog-like characteristics, like hiding things as dogs do. Unfortunately, when people refer to her as Dog Girl, she gets upset and wishes for nothing more than to find her brothers and biological mother, and most of all, to be treated the same as everyone else. Mom raised by monkeys. For 5 years, when she was 5 years old, a woman named Marina Chapman claims to have been raised by monkeys. Originally from Colombia, Marina was playing near her home when 2 adults came up behind her and covered her mouth with a handkerchief. She remembers hearing the sounds of other children crying while being taken away and driven through the Colombian rainforest, where she was dumped alone. Expecting the kidnappers to eventually come back to get her, Marina was left there to fend for herself when they never returned. After walking to look for help, Marina stumbled upon a family of monkeys scavenging for food and grooming one another. Settling near the monkeys as a way to have some sort of interaction and not stay alone, Marina wanted to be part of their family. At first, the monkeys ignored her, but when Marina got a serious case of food poisoning, an elderly monkey led her to water to get her a drink. After she began to recover, the young monkeys befriended her, and after watching them closely, she learned how to climb trees, what to eat, and how to clean herself. She also found that by standing under the monkeys, they would soon drop bananas which she could take for herself. Over time, the monkeys grew to accept her and allowed her to sit in the trees with them. Unable to remember much about her time before being kidnapped, Marina's amnesia seems to have been brought on by the stress of the situation, but she managed to cope by learning what the noises and movements of the monkeys meant. Specific sounds, like whistling, let her know that they had found food. Another sound alerted her to any danger they felt. But now, at age 60, she is quick to point out that the monkeys didn't provide for her. Instead, they welcomed her into their family. She insists she was not actually raised by them, but only became a part of their group for survival. Occasionally, she says she saw hunters come into the jungle with guns and machetes. One day, she approached them, naked and all fours, grunting at them, pleading to be rescued. Fortunately, they did. Unfortunately, Marina's story wasn't to have a happy ending just yet. The men sold her into a brothel where she was forced to clean and was regularly beaten. She managed to escape before she had to do anything unforgettable, and after living on the streets, she ended up gaining work for a family of notorious criminals. Eventually, she fled the situation and was adopted, and after being sent away to live with one of the extended family at age 14, Marina was adopted and became a nanny. She later met her husband at church and had 2 children, now adults, who remember their mother telling them many stories about her monkeys growing up. Russian Bird Boy. In 2008, Russian caretakers rescued a 7-year-old boy who had been raised by his mother as a pet bird. The strange case of Vanya Yudin is another case of parental neglect. Vanya's mother is said to have had pet birds and raised her son alongside them. probably some sort of mental illness. More than that, she kept him in her apartment, which was already filled with bird cages, and gave him little to no loving human interaction. Treating him like one of her pets, Vanya's mother taught him to interact by only chirping and flapping his arms and hands as if he had wings. A social worker who helped to rescue him explained that his behavior is known as Mowgli syndrome, after the character in the Jungle Book who was raised by animals. Children who are abandoned and neglected in this way are helpless and rely upon other living species to teach them behavior. After being kept with birds, Vanya mimicked their mannerisms, and seeing his mother respond to the birds, he would copy their behavior, which, after receiving the attention he so desperately craved, it taught him that those actions would receive a response from the mother who should have been properly taking care of him anyway. Although Vanya was physically healthy when he was found, his mental and social issues were pretty severe, resulting in doctors placing him in an asylum, later moved to a center for psychological care. No one knows why parents choose to subject their children to such ordeals, but one can hope that Vanya received the care he needed. Cambodian wild child. For 20 years, a Cambodian family held out hope that their 8-year-old daughter would one day be found. Having disappeared while tending to the family's buffalo, Rocham Pinjing would not be seen again until 2019, when a wild naked woman was spotted near a village scavenging for food. Living in the wild for 20 years, the girl, now 27, was immediately identified by her father. He went to the area where she was spotted and crouched down near the edge of the jungle to wait. Several hours later, she emerged and, upon seeing her father, walked upright and asked for her mother. A policeman interviewed about the girl claims that she looks both human and animal-like. She is said to have diminished mental capacity, with vacant eyes, and was incapable of communicating. She tended to eat food that had fallen on the floor, and instead of speaking, would act out or mime to signal she was hungry. But the story would take an even stranger twist when another family claimed that Rocham was their daughter instead. A Vietnamese police officer claimed that Rocham was mentally ill and had run away from the family in 2006. Some believed the second story to be more plausible, as Rocham didn't look like she had spent 20 years living in the forest. After providing documentation about Rocham's true identity, she was taken from her Cambodian family, whom she had been living with for 10 years, and returned to her supposedly true Vietnamese family. Unfortunately, Rocham continues to remain silent and incapable of communicating, so the true story of what happened to her, and which is her real family, might never be solved. But at least she is being taken care of, away from the trials and tribulations of living on her own in the Cambodian forest. Raised by goats. Another Russian case of a child raised by animals brings to light the cruel nature of some people. Known as Sasha T., the boy was kept in a room with goats by his mother. She seemed to rely upon the animals to keep him protected and entertained, as the boy slept in and played with the animals. He was never taught to speak, and when social workers discovered him, Sasha was severely malnourished. The room he was found in was extremely cold and dirty, and because of how he was raised, his brain had not properly developed. Weighing less than a typical child of his age, Sasha refused to sleep in a bed after he was rescued and instead tried to get under the bed for comfort. He was very afraid of adults and tried to break everything he came into contact with. When social workers tried to feed him, he could not use a spoon properly and was completely stumped as to how to play with the toys he was given. His mother lost all parental rights to Sasha, which is the best chance for this young boy to learn that love and care are rights for anyone, especially a vulnerable child. Cat carers. In 2008, a young boy was found in Argentina surrounded by 8 wild cats. Seen foraging for scraps with the animals, the boy is believed to have snuggled up with the cats during the cold night that would have otherwise killed them. A policewoman discovered the boy by a canal after noticing a gang of cats sitting very close together. When she went closer, she noticed a boy lying at the bottom of the gutter with cats on top of him licking him. The cats became very protective and spat at the officer, who noticed scraps of food near the boy. Seeing how fragile he was and knowing that he needed protection, the officer took action. After finding the boy's father, police discovered the man had lost his boy several days prior while he was out collecting cardboard to sell. A spokesman for the local animal welfare shelter believes that the feral cat simply cuddled up to the boy to keep warm. Dog boy of Chile. An 11-year-old boy who was living with stray dogs in Chile was captured in an attempt to keep him from escaping back to the streets. Found shivering living with stray dogs in northern Chile for about 3 months, the boy scavenged with the dogs for food and drank milk from the teat of a female dog that had recently given birth. A local businessman who dubbed the boy Dog Boy often saw the boy, whose teeth were rotting, and who would snarl at any humans who tried to approach him to give him help. Abandoned by his 16-year-old mother when he was 5 years old, the boy named Alex was placed into a children's home in 1998, but he ran away multiple times, including the final time where he took off with as many as 15 dogs protecting him. The boy and the dogs lived in a cave and roamed the streets for food. He would often eat out of a garbage can and find leftovers wherever he could. After surviving for 2 years in a cave with the pack of stray dogs, the boy, who showed signs of depression and aggression, was later placed into a child care center for rehabilitation with the hopes that he could one day live a normal life. Boy raised by monkeys. In 1991, a tribeswoman in Africa discovered a boy hiding in a tree. After returning with some men from her village, the boy was found living with green African monkeys in the jungle. When the villagers tried to approach him to help the boy, the monkeys threw sticks at them to try to protect the boy. The boy, John Sabunya of Uganda, disappeared into the forest, and it is believed he spent about a year living with the monkeys learning their behavior. When he was discovered, he acted more like a monkey than a human, but luckily he was rescued and eventually overcame the difficulties of his young life. It is believed that because of a brutal civil war that was taking place in Uganda at the time John was born, the stark conditions are what led to his unfortunate upbringing. His father is believed to have murdered his mother, after which John fled to the jungle. After making first contact with the monkeys, the animals later approached him offering him food like nuts and sweet potatoes. About 2 weeks later, the boy joined the monkeys and traveled around the jungle, with the animals teaching them how to find food in the trees. Later, when John was discovered by humans, he had long hair that covered his face and body. Unable to walk and with no language skills, John was sent to an orphanage. But these unfortunate circumstances would not define the boy who later, after some rehabilitation, showed skills of being an incredible athlete, with him later competing in the Special Olympics. Despite his tumultuous upbringing, John later showed that he was able to live a relatively normal life, showing off his athleticism and affinity for singing, proving that even with the most unbelievable upbringing, John was still able to live out a life with happiness and joy. Wolf Boy. A boy found in Russia in 2007 displayed strange wolf-like habits and behavior. Found in a lair made from leaves and sticks in freezing temperatures, villagers discovered the boy running with wolves and searching for food with them. Dirty, hungry, and behaving erratically, the boy appeared to be intelligent but did not speak any known language. With typical wolf-like behavior and habits, police believed the boy to be dangerous to others, and doctors were shocked at finding out that he was living with a pack of wolves in a remote forest in central Russia. Nicknamed Werewolf Boy, the boy snarled and bit and escaped the Moscow clinic where he was brought to one day after being rescued from the wild. Unfortunately, the boy escaped before officials were able to determine his identity, and although he had serious psychological problems and possibly a source of viruses and infections, doctors and officials could do nothing after he escaped the security at the clinic. Nothing else was heard of the boy, and officials believed he continued to remain on the loose in the Moscow region. Jungle Woman. 38 years after going missing in a Myanmar jungle, a woman named Ing Chidayam was found in a local village. Fellow villagers had heard the talk of a jungle girl for decades, but they never considered it could be the missing villager among them. Discovered living naked in a cemetery, her parents had given up all hope of ever seeing her alive again. Chidai and her cousin were playing in the jungle field next to their village when they went missing in 1974. Local communities banded together to find the children, but when they went missing in a heavy rainstorm, villagers feared the worst. When her cousin was discovered poorly but alive, the villagers' hope resurfaced that they could still find Chidai. But after returning to the forest, she was nowhere to be found. Years passed, and although people continued to look for her, Chidai was considered missing. But stories continued of a so-called jungle girl who roamed the forest. People spoke of a naked woman with long hair and nails living in the forest and attacking those who tried to approach her. Years later, in 2012, Chidai's father, Kyla, joined some friends for dinner one night. One of the guests told him that he looked like a woman she had adopted 4 years ago. The same woman had been found living in their village cemetery. Believing it could be his daughter, Kyla visited her and after recognizing the birthmark on her face, realized it was his own daughter. But Chidai didn't remember anything from her past. Luckily, the next evening, Chidai walked up to her father, seemingly remembering who he was, and the family reunited and brought Chidai back to her home in India. Although she does not seem to remember what happened to her, the miraculous story that some 38 years later Chidai had been reunited with her family is the happy ending everyone hoped for. What do you think about these people raised by animals? Which story impacted you the most? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss out on our next cool videos.